All right, what's up, family? I'm Sade, and we are back for my Astro Series segment. Today, we are diving into the 7th house. Now, I love studying all of the houses, but I will honestly say the 7th house is one of my favorite houses to dissect in other people's chart. And the reason being is because the 7th house, as we know, is ruled by Libra and Venus. And the 7th house is the house where we start to have relationships with people. So we come out of Virgo, the 6th house of building self-mastery. And then we enter into the 7th house of saying, okay, I've spent this time on myself. I've spent this time alone. Now, how do I begin to understand other people and have relationships with other people? Now, some astrologers will say that the 7th house deals with marriage. I personally believe the 8th house is more so of marriage, what happens behind closed doors. But the 7th house is how we begin to attract people into our life. The reason why the 7th house is so important, I feel like I say this about every house and every sign, but the reason why the 7th house is so important is because the 7th house is your shadow. It is the aspect of yourself that you are unaware of. And what happens? Because you're unaware of that, you end up attracting that in a partner. A lot of times, it's not only about what we know about ourselves that we're able to attract. It's sometimes the things that catch us off guard because it's in our background. It's in our rear view mirror. We can't see it, but it's a part of us. And what happens is because we're so unaware of it, we end up attracting it in a partner. And sometimes we're so confused by the person that we attract into our life because there's a part of ourselves that we keep hidden and in the shadows. That is the 7th house. And to really understand how that 7th house works, you got to look towards the 1st house, which we spoke about already, and that is the ascendant, your rising. So if you are, for example, a Gemini rising, then you are a Sagittarius descendant. That means Sagittarius is in your 7th house. It is your shadow house. So as a Gemini rising, you might be a person that you love to communicate, you love connecting with people, socializing, you love to learn about so many different things, being a jack of all trades, and having that Sagittarius descendant is going to signify a part of you that wants to focus on one thing, wants to find the philosophy and the deeper meaning of life by building mastery in one subject instead of being a jack of all trades. But because you're a Gemini rising, you don't know this aspect about yourself that well. So you move through life with that Mercury energy of connecting, collecting all this information. And what happens? You might attract someone, maybe a business partner, maybe an intimate partner into your life that brings you Sagittarius energy, that wants to travel all over the world to learn the philosophy of life, that wants to focus on one specific thing and understand the meaning of their life, that wants to teach and maybe guide people through a spiritual practice. You end up attracting that 7th house energy, and it is a part of who you are. You're just not aware of it yet. And that is why 7th house is so important. Coming back to the 7th house, that is why it's so important. 7th house is where we can find business deals and contracts or people that we end up having business with. Anything pertaining to having close relation and figuring out who we are through our relationships with other people. And that is why understanding the sign in this house can show you why you might attract certain people into your life, bosses, partners, friends. Because 7th house, being ruled by Libra, is all about how do we find balance in our relationships with people. It can be a significator, depending on the sign in your house, about how you like to attract people into your life. 7th house is all about understanding who we are through the other person. So in order for us to understand 7th house energy, we need other people. We need a business partner. We need an intimate partner. We need our friend. 7th house is also about obstacles and challenges because we need other people in that house. And it's where we're learning about other people and learning about how to have relationships in that house. It can be a place where we have to sacrifice because we're learning to figure out how do we find balance in our relationships? How do we find ways to be independently ourselves, but ways to still be of service and use to the people in our life? Let's say, for example, if you have Capricorn in the 7th house, or maybe even Saturn. Saturn does very well in the 7th house. And the reason is because Saturn is all about boundaries. All about boundaries. And what Saturn does, or Capricorn in this 7th house, is it makes a person develop boundaries and structures in their relationships in order to have successful, foundational, and productive relationships. Capricorn Venus or Capricorn in the 7th house can be a person that can come across as very conservative, very grounded, and maybe not as lovey-dovey as like a Libran person or Cancer in Venus would come across. However, what Capricorn energy does, or what Saturn energy does, is it brings foundation, it brings stability, it brings boundaries so that people can come to a common ground. Now, that's if you are aware of this Capricorn energy. Because if you have Capricorn in your 7th house, that means you have Cancer in your 1st house. And Cancer loves to take care of people. And what Cancer has to learn is how to have boundaries. So if you're a Cancer rising and you love to assert yourself by caring for others and being that nurturing mother, that spiritual goddess that you are to heal people, and you get overwhelmed by having to take care of everyone, you might attract people that have more Capricorn energy into your life to teach you how to have that balance, how to have boundaries, how to be stable, and have foundations to have better relationships. Or you might be that Capricorn person to your partner that you attract as well. So 7th house is all about reflection, right? Because the people we attract into our life, whether friends, family, business, intimate, they're always going to be a reflection of us. So knowing what you have in this 7th house is going to show you how you can learn deeper about yourself through these people, what these people are trying to teach you through your relationships with them. All right, that's all we have for 7th house. So remember, 7th house, ruled by Libra, Venus loves to be in this house. All about relationships, connecting, finding balance, learning more about our shadow self through other people. Thank you so much for joining my Astro series. Next, we are going to go ahead and dive into the lovely, lovely Scorpion sign, which is actually one of my favorite signs to dissect. So we're going to dive into the 8th house in Scorpio in my next segment. Thank you guys so much for joining. My name is Sade, and I hope to see you for our next few segments.